We'll call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the land on which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'll ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the 2025 budget deliberation meeting, both held at City Hall on December 9th, 2024, be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Doyle. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no delegations this evening and no public hearings. We'll move into Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report this evening.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy. Nope, sorry. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Okay, Madam Mayor. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report at this time in the meeting.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy. Thank you. Can you just try your mic again for...
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Services Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation has nothing to report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. We have no items of deferred business. We'll move right into new business. We have the November financial statements from Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. In your package, you have the November 2024 financial statements. They're for your information only. No decision making on these tonight. Just a couple of comments. These statements do not reflect any of the adjustments for November yet. There are still invoices and other items to go into the statements, and they will have an overall impact on the final financial statements. You will be getting the pre-audited statements will be brought to the March council meeting. And then as you know, when we do our audit, they come to council in June. So you'll be getting all of that information in upcoming meetings, but this is for your information. And if you have any questions or comments, please present them.
Does anybody have questions on these statements? No? Thank you, Councillor Massey. Okay, another item of new business, proposal to subdivide Lot 4 Plan A48511 in Part River Lot 89. David Metcalf, City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, I'm bringing forward a proposal to subdivide, which is the area on the island. The consideration is for the application to subdivide the present lots of 1.32 acres and subdivide that land into 4 new residential lots. Tonight, of course, we can approve the application, amend the proposed plan of subdivision, or deny the application. So first thing I want to draw your attention to is the site map. You will see there where they're referred to, which really kind of completes that whole street section. And of course, some of the notes that are on that as well, where the applicant proposes to subdivide a very large residential lot on the island into 4 new residential lots. All lots are currently vacant of building structures, and each lot will be serviced by municipal sewer and water and gain access directly off Nano Lane. So as I indicated, the proposal is to subdivide CT 3295225/3 into 4 residential lots. The development plan, the proposed subdivision is located within an area that is already designated as a neighborhood area pursuant to the Portage Planning Area District Development Plan. You can see all the points there of why it fits into the development plan. There are a couple of caveats. So first of all, it does fit into the current zoning bylaw. It is currently zoned as R1, or residential single family zone. So it fits within that. But some of the comments that I do want to read through for the record is the Portage la Prairie Planning District recommends conditional approval with the condition that the drainage is sloped accordingly as reviewed by the City of Portage la Prairie. Requires a plan of subdivision for land titles, which is fairly normal. Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure and Water Management, this is what I want us to pay attention to, is that advise that the 200-year flood protection level, which I think happens every year, but for this location is approximately 260.3 meters or 854 feet. And any structures built on this land should be constructed on land in excess of the 854 feet above sea level. Or on land which has been raised with clean impervious fill to be in excess of 854 feet. The flood risk should be made known to any potential purchaser. All other departments, agencies had no comments or concerns. Community and Regional Planning recommends approval of the subdivision subject to the conditions of approval. That a development agreement is entered into within the City of Portage la Prairie to address matters including, but not limited to, drainage concerns, flood elevation recommendations by MTI Water Management, and any other public works deemed necessary by council, again, which is not unusual. So it's an administrative recommendation, and I so move that the council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision being Lot 4, Plan 48511 PLTO, in Part River, Lot 89, Parish of Portage la Prairie, subject to a development agreement being entered into with the City of Portage la Prairie to address matters including, but not limited to, easement agreements for city structure, drainage concerns, and flood elevation recommendations by MTI Water Management.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. No question. Sorry, I do actually have one quick question, sorry, of clarification. And it would obviously be through Your Worship to the Planning District. When you just talk about, and I know it's just an example where it fits into the development plan, but you talk about infill development, and I'm just curious to see how this being on new land that has never been developed before is considered infill. Does that question
Mr.
make sense?
Pito?
I would refer this to Mr. Gessel, see if he has any comments, and I'll follow up.
I think right now you're asking about the infill development, which is
Just part of the current development plan?
that's tough to speculate. I think that would come back to city to make a ruling on that because this isn't the current lot that is being demolished. It's current lots that are, it's open land that's being subdivided for the purpose of building. So I'm not sure if that falls under the infill.
Okay.
Currently the infill is looking at residents within Portage or around the city here that you may be demolishing a home or taking down something to create better structures,
Right.
or better dwellings at the time, or it could be vacant lots within the city that are already zoned and established as a residential home.
Right.
In this case, I think we're looking at brand new development, so I'm not sure an infill would fit that, but I'll leave it with the city to make decisions on that.
Okay. And the only reason I had two real quick rational questions on why I asked that. One is that when you're referring to it in the report to council, it does talk about infill development in there. So that does affect our infill development agreement where we do a rebate back to property owners. And I was just wondering how that would affect it, or is this too early in the process?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer. So our infill development incentives that are currently put, it has a definition of infill. This does meet part of that criteria. It's surrounded by developed property. However, it does mention that infill property would have had water and sewer connections already. And to my knowledge, these properties have access to, but have not been directly serviced.
Okay. That does answer my question, Your Worship. And one further comment. It is something I certainly will speak in favor of. I do believe it fits the area and makes sense to complete that entire street in its own essence. So I will be speaking in favor of it.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a question too for planning. Just curious about the MTI talking about the flood risk and mostly just curiosity. Does that affect all the lots listed there, or is it just the one closest to the lake bank?
I mean, if we look at it in a whole, it's going to affect everything.
Everyone?
I mean,
Okay.
everybody has a potential chance, right?
Oh, yeah.
our concern, from what our standpoint was after talking to our board and some operations people, was more or less when you look at lot 3 and 4 on here, in behind Massey Crescent, the water seems to drain backwards towards that way. So we wanted to ensure that we get proper swale and drainage running towards the lakeway, so that we don't run into current problems backing up into, I guess it would be number 3 there on Massey Crescent. Seems to have quite a problem with it. So that's more or less our recommendation. Their recommendation is because there's a lakefront there, there's always potential. City does its best to control it though, so I think we're pretty safe in that way.
Interesting. I just found it interesting because I think that's the first time I've seen it in a report. So.
Your worship, we had a previous subdivision come to council. If you recall, it was off Pelequity, and this was also a reference on that file. So I think anything on the island of province will reference that concern.
Gotcha. Okay. Nothing else. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, another item of new business. We have November building reports, City Planning and Economic Development. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, of course, as usual, I ask you to refer to the combined totals, as we are a regional organization. This, of course, is just till the end of November, and it will change, obviously, because of December when that report comes out as well. Just want to point out that the pattern continues. We've had an excess of permits this year compared to last year, from 300 in total to 258 in the previous year. Obviously, we know majority of those permits would probably be through institutional and through the hospital. But I also want to point out for the month that there were a total of 2,677,000 in new permits just for the month of November alone. So the trend does continue. Just want to point out that new 2.2 million in new commercial permits. So it just goes to show you that the commercial development is alive and well. Industrial, of course, a small amount of that, but the hospital is probably primarily done, I believe, in permitting at this point in time. But the last trend, of course, is the repair items. Again, you look at the houses, residential, 8.8 million last year with 98 permits to 61 for 2.9 million the previous year. So shows you the trend that people are starting to invest back into their houses. We know property values are going to go up, and of course, it's just that much better for the city. So that's really all I have to point out. No real changes from where it's been the last 10 months other than the increases. And unless you have any questions, that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Meyer? Thank you. We have no items of old business. We will adjourn council at 6:13 and we'll move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:13 p.m. Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. Finance, Legislative and Property Committee has no report for committee this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing on the agenda, but I would refer to Councillor Massey, who would like to do an update on the Portage District Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. A couple of items. We met on January the 8th of this year with the Chamber, our monthly meeting, along with our mayor and city manager. We covered... just shows you the relationship we have with the Chamber. We covered 17 items, and a lot of it was updates. But the nice thing is that on all of them, there's good progress. They feel good about the direction of the city. And we, of course, highlighted a couple. One of the things they really want us to put a push on is our vehicle for hire bylaw changes. They continue to ask about that. So we certainly want to speed that up for them and get some of their concerns addressed there. But I think for the most part, we told them about our budget day on January 27th. But when you cover 17 items in about an hour and 10 minutes, it just shows you the relationship. It's very open and honest, and we share a lot with them. And as I've said many times, it's one of the best stakeholder relations I think that we have in the city was with the Chamber. So appreciate the mayor and the city manager coming. They update a lot of the items because, you know, they're right on top of the issues. And it's, as I say, it's really good to see us giving them these updates and knowing exactly where they are. So, you know, you go to some municipalities, the Chamber's always asking what's happening here. It's in the media. we have a great rapport with our chamber. And so that's my report if there's any specific questions. But 17 items, and they were all addressed. So.
Thank you. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. No real question, but I just do want to comment that I'm so proud of this council's relationship with the chamber. It really is representative of our business community, and I do know that the businesses, of course, do appreciate the lobby that they have, and I think the communication out there as well. So I encourage our relationship to keep going forward and make sure we keep that connection in check.
Thank you. Thanks for keeping track, Councillor Massey. I had no idea. Awesome. Okay, Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a number of things to talk about tonight, but right off the bat, through Your Worship, I'd like to call upon our city manager for a Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program application update.
Thank you, Councillor Espy. I just wanted to keep council and the public informed on our application to the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. We communicated publicly we had submitted an application under this new program that partners with the federal government. We submitted an application in partnership with the chamber and several other groups. The goal of the program is to better coordinate immigration in your community by targeting specific community priorities for skills and trades, and then helping target those specific people to bring them to your community. The application closed in October. We submitted our application in partnership, as I had mentioned, and we have recently found that we were not successful in our application. So keeping the public and council informed that we will not be moving forward with that program in 2025, and happy to answer any questions from council on that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions, and not the greatest news we've received in a while, but on to some better stuff. There's been a new website launched at the end of December. You can now sign up on the website for email notifications or for emergency alerts, news and notices, service disruptions, job opportunities, tenders, and proposals. Also, we have a new community sign, if you may have noticed that. The city has partnered with the PCRC on the new sign in front of the Herman Pryor / library. It will feature city notices as well as events. There's an online submission form on the city's new website for nonprofit organizations to submit what they would like advertised on the sign.
Excellent.
And now, through Your Worship, I will call upon my colleague, Councillor Massey, for an update on the library.
Thank you, Councillor Espy and colleagues. Just one update. As you know, we've been recruiting a library director since our previous director left, Jen Kendall. And I can tell you that our board has approved the hiring of Michaela Goddard as our new library director. She works at the library currently, so she's in-house. And we're very pleased with the hire, and we think she'll go a long way in moving our library forward. I hope that we'll be doing a little more of a public news release possibly on this. I talked to the chair about it, but I thought council should know that we have filled that position, and hopefully we'll all get an opportunity to meet her at some point. But she is on maternity leave right now, so we have an acting library director, but she will be starting as our library director. So Michaela Goddard, I'm very pleased to advise council.
Thank you, Councillor Massey.
And last but not least, I'd like to call upon our youth councillors to give us an update on the Meet Your Council event.
Thank you.
Just want to pull that a little closer to you. You can pull the whole thing closer to you. There you go.
Last week on Wednesday, we had a Meet the Council event at BCI, and a lot of students went there. I believe that all of the councillors present, yeah, and a lot of the students were very excited to go there, mainly for the pizza, but some
Yeah.
but some were interested in government stuff and were asking questions, so that was very appreciated. They were also helping volunteer, so that was nice. The person in charge of the room was very accommodating. A lot of delays happened. I think it was initially organized last month, December. It got pushed and pushed because of no bus days, but thankfully it did happen. So that was good. And it was organized very smoothly. Everything happened, and the teachers were very accommodating. It went very well.
Thank you.
Good job to you both, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Yes, I'll say, youth counselors, you did a great job the other day, and it was great to see so many students out, and nice to see some of the teachers had classes prepared and asked us some pretty hard-hitting questions. Stumped us on a couple for sure, too, yeah. So it was good. Thank you. Okay, Waterworks Committee, Counselor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report in committee.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Counselor Porter. Or sorry, can we go back to Waterworks for a second?
Sure.
Sure. Do you know anything about Gigot Avenue, Counselor Nichols?
Yes, thank you. I was going to I had prompt Councillor Porter to bring it up to me and her, but yes, please, through Your Worship, to possibly administration, any update on Gigot Avenue, where we're at right now, please?
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. I'll pass that on to our Director of Operations.
Yes, so we were doing water main and sewer renewals on Gigot. The contractor was not thinking that they would be able to get them finished this year, but with the warm weather, they actually were able to push through and get everything completed. But they did get into freezing temperatures by the end. So when they were backfilling that last section, they were backfilling with frozen backfill. So we didn't want to have like a really rough area over the winter. So we decided that it was better just to close off that area. The 4 homes there do have access. There's just no through traffic until the spring when we can fix it up properly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably a great idea if we do a media with it, little story out there on that. Keep the public informed. Awesome. Okay, Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Worship. Transportation has nothing to report unless any of my other council members here have any questions or like to address any concerns.
Thank you. Maybe just a comment under transportation, and maybe through our Director of Operations we could comment. We've seen a little bit of information on social media and in the media talking about, you know, our snow removal, etc., and, you know, damage that gets done, or, you know, something that gets pushed over, and sort of the blame game going on there, which I think is a little bit unfair to our operators. But maybe you could comment a little bit on how that happens and what we see every year.
Absolutely. So this year was quite a challenge, as the ground didn't really freeze solid before we started getting lots of snow. So you don't have to go down very far to hit like soft ground. Like, I think everybody knows when it started snowing, the grass was still green. So that's not our normal fall weather. In addition, just in general with snow clearing, there's always going to be some damage that happens. It's just the nature of the work that you can't see through the snow. We try to keep that to a minimum, and I really think our crews are quite careful and do really keep it to a minimum. If you look in other cities, you'll see, you know, a lot of chipped curbs and all that sort of thing, especially when you're using contractors, which we don't do. So, yeah, I think our staff does a really good job.
Good comments. I think 2 things to note there is that it's our city workers doing the work, and we around this table know that when we talk to them and have had the opportunity, that they very much take pride in what they do in their jobs, and so they do the best job they can, and so let's remember that. Councillor Meyer.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Just on the backs of that, if I may, and I know we addressed it, I don't know if it was the last council meeting or the meeting before, but if we can just review one more time why we don't scrape right down to the pavement and why we don't use salt. And I'm hoping the media can pick up on that.
Sure. We will
Through-
let, I could give
through
you
your
my
worship.
Google review, but we'll let the
through
Director of
through your
Operations
worship to the city
explain
manager,
it,
to
yeah.
of course our Director of Operations.
Yeah, so with the salt, it was many years ago they decided not to stop using salt. It is bad for environmental reasons, for the runoff into the lake and in other waterways. It also causes the pavement to break down more quickly. So we had switched to beet juice, which does a pretty good job. It works better in some times than others, but so does salt. So, and we also use the sand. We also don't scrape down the roads right down. When your road's completely flat and new, you can do that without damaging the road too much. But as the roads get older and they're not completely smooth, you run the risk of damaging your pavement by trying to get it right down.
Thank you. Okay. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's good to be back. Happy to see everyone around the table here had a safe holiday. A couple things. I would just like to give a shout out to the Operation Red Nose organization this year, and Leo Lapointe. And the volunteers were down drastically this year, and I know that the program continued to operate and made do with the volunteers they had. And so I want to thank everyone who had volunteered. And I can't remember the final number that I read, but hundreds of safe rides home, starting the last weekend in November all the way up to New Year's Eve. Hundreds of rides home for our citizens here. And I wanted to mention that in my day-to-day job, I'm all around town, and I cannot go out during the day without seeing the community safety officers either on foot patrol or the vehicle around town. So hats off to Chief Bailey, Director of Public Safety, and Caitlin over at the Public Safety Office for getting everything organized over there. And hats off to the patrols that are out there in these cold weathers. I saw them walking around today, and wasn't the warmest day. So again, good to be back. That's all I have, unless someone else has anything related to public safety.
Thank you. The kudos to the CSOs also came from one of the items with the chamber, so that was great to hear too, that they're hearing it from the business community. Excellent. If nothing else, we will adjourn committee at 6:29 p.m. And we are going to move right into our